A lot of times people ask me what books are really good for leadership and mindset. Top 5 leadership books that influenced me in my career path on today's episode of the Coleman Nation. Let's go. Over the years of, I've been in business for 20 plus years as a business owner, and it's been a really, really exciting journey for me. And there are a ton of authors that I could recommend as far as books that have really, helped me. Some of the books that I would generally recommend are books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, absolutely awesome. Another book called Speed Wealth by T. Harv Eker, that's an incredible book. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, another incredible book. Anything by John Maxwell, absolutely amazing. That was probably one of the ones that was the most influential to me was a book called Talent is Never Enough by John Maxwell, amongst a million other books that he's done. And so these are all fairly standard books. You could almost, pick an author in that area, 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. There's just a ton of them that are out there that I could recommend. But the fact is that you've been recommended these books already. I'm going to talk to you today about the books that really crafted the way that I think. And the reason why I bring this up is a lot of times in the self-improvement leadership circles, the motivational speaker circles, the books that, are recommended are all nonfiction that people are going to recommend. And so like I said, those are some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, but the books that really influenced me and really changed the way that I think and how I approach life, and the books that inspired me, those are the books that I don't think that we talk enough about. And these are, generally speaking, the books that are most near and dear to my heart are the ones that engage my imagination. And so that's what I'm going to give to you today are the top 5 books, that business leadership books that are actually fiction books that I think that you guys will really, really enjoy just for a change of pace. Number 5, the book that I would probably tell you that is actually a series. In fact, several of these are series. So if you want a lot of books to read, these ones would be, very, very good. But the first one I would recommend would be the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. I would recommend the entire series. 2 of the ones that really stand out for me are I, Robot and Prelude to Foundation, which is the story of Harry Seldon. I think that the Foundation series is one that you could jump into, and it would really, really inspire you to think big and just engage your imagination in a way that I just don't think that nonfiction is going to. So that locks in at number 5 of sort of the leadership mindset books would be the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. Number 4 on this list is one that is really near and dear to my heart. I read it when I was probably about 13 years old, and it was just one of the books that was kind of going around my school at the time. I was probably a couple years old by the time that I was in high school, middle school, but it was Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard is absolutely incredible. Now, people have different mixed feelings about the movie, but the book in and of itself, there's so much about that book, just as far as a pure inspirational fictional novel of someone going in from, sort of the beginning, being attacked by an enemy, mobilizing forces, winning a battle, and then kind of taking it to another level. It is really one of those books that, I read it many times, over the years. And it was just one of those things where it's just like every time I read, I feel inspired and renewed to be able to go out there. And the characterizations and, the heroes and the villains and everything that happens in there, it is just a really, really great book that I think will, inspire a different aspect of, leadership and engagement. If you're, someone that's a business owner, you're looking to be able to, kind of just get yourself inspired and have something that's really fun to read. I think the Battlefield Earth, locking it at number 4, is an absolute winner. Number 3 Number 3 on my list of, inspirational leadership fiction works is going to be one that is a little bit hard to find, but I just absolutely love it. And it is called the Lensman series by a guy named Doc Smith. It was written in the 30s. And you may be like, wow, a lot of these are space opera, science fiction type of books. Absolutely. But there's a reason why I think that's, science fiction is really, really great. I mean, think about some of the great stories that we have today, like Star Wars, Star Trek. I just think that science fiction is just some of the most interesting and imaginative stuff that's out there, and it inspires in a way that is very, very unique for a society. And especially what we got right now with Elon Musk and going to Mars and, all these different things and where technology is and quantum computing. I think that the concepts of science fiction over the years have really expanded, and no other series out of these recommendations do I think has had more to do with that than the Lensman series by Doc Smith. Now, the Lensman series by Doc Smith, the guy that created Babylon 5, said that this was a direct inspiration for that show. Some of the other shows that I know came directly out of, the concepts in the Lensman series were like Stargate was another one. And all the Star Wars movies were actually directly inspired by the Lensman series. Now, I don't know how much of it George Lucas read. It's just that stuff that I'd read over the years. And then some of the concepts that you'll read in it, I mean, it's like very, very powerful. But what is it about the Lensman series and the book that I'll recommend of it? All of them are great, but it's the first one, and by the way, it's free on Amazon. You can download it for free on your Kindle, but the book is called Triplanetary, and it's about the, sort of the formation of the law enforcement agency inside of our solar system, having to do with Earth, Mars, and Venus, right? And then there's other settlements that are out on Saturn and then on Jupiter. But the fact of the matter is, it was that establishment of sort of, how do you enforce laws in a sort of interplanetary mix. Totally incredible. And some of the problems with that. And then from there, the whole Lensman series starts to explode. But I got to tell you, I just think that this is why that series of books is so, I think, critical and important and really inspired me from a leadership perspective, is that one of the big things about leadership is vision. And being able to have a very, very big vision. People have asked me like that over time, like, how do you get a big vision? Well, you have to have stories that stretch your vision. And this is the point of the Lensman series, is it starts at the beginning of time and the end is the end of time. Okay. So if there's anything that you could pull from being visionary, something that starts at the beginning of time and ends at the end of time and has characters that run through the entire thread of that, that existence is visionary, and it stretches your mind and your ability to think. So I think that, the Lensman series locks in at, number 3. And again, the first book that I'd recommend is Triplanetary. Totally amazing. The stories that are in there, it's just absolutely phenomenal. But the Lensman series, definitely a must read for leadership, inspiration, and vision. Number 2, what's the number 2, book or series that I would recommend? Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card is like no other book that I've ever read. In fact, I will tell you this right now, they actually do teach leadership courses specifically utilizing Ender's Game as one of the core books as a reading assignment. And I think that this is in University of Utah or something like that, has a leadership book or a leadership course, on entrepreneurism or something like that, that has Ender's Game. At least it was in the intro on one of the versions that I had read of that book, that they utilized that for that course. I had a very unique experience a couple of months ago. I actually had a chance to go and attend a workshop that was being hosted by Orson Scott Card. He actually was one of the keynote speakers there, and he talked a lot about the book and its impact, and how he had come up with it and the idea and when he had written it and all that kind of stuff. But let me just put it this way: one of the concepts that I think really is important for being a great leader is the ability to overcome adversity. And how much can the sort of the human spirit take before it breaks? I don't think that that's a question that people often ask themselves, especially when they're in the endeavor of trying to build a business, is like, how much can I take before I break? And the answer to that question is it's nearly infinite. I mean, obviously there's going to be some things that you don't want to go through as far as adversity is concerned, but the point is that it follows the adventures of this little kid and his merry band of other little kids that are there that are entrusted with this tremendous responsibility of saving a planet. And the trials that he is put through in order to be able to make sure that he turns into something and into a person that can shoulder the responsibility of saving a civilization. There's no other book that I think has ever been written like it, and maybe there has, inspired by it, but the fact is that this was a very, very original piece of work by Orson Scott Card. It stands as one of my favorite, not only one of my favorites, but when I talk to people, they hear me make that recommendation, universally across, oh my gosh, Ender's Game, I love that book. Was the movie good? Absolutely. I thought the movie was fantastic. I thought it brought to life many of the things that I had seen visually in my own mind, about that. But I really think that Ender's Game, and correlated, right, to Ender's Game, is Ender's Shadow, which is the story of one of the other characters, the same story from a different perspective. And I think that, those two books, Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow, are absolutely, just incredible books. The rest of the series, you can, take it or leave it. There's mixed reactions on that. So locked in at number 2 is Ender's Game and related books, but that was just powerful number 2, Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Now, what's number 1? Okay, the number 1 book that absolutely influenced me, I have read many, many times. In fact, I'm probably due for another reading right now. There's plenty of books that are out there that I'll tell you that have influenced me as well. And again, these are, fiction books or, based on nonfiction, and I'll tell you some of the other ones too. Lord of the Flies is great. Catcher in the Rye was incredible. Old Man in the Sea, that was another great one. I mean, these are just some classics that I don't think that we talk about, read enough. Great Expectations, Charles Dickens, Macbeth and Hamlet, these were great books as well. Agony and the Ecstasy by Irving Stone, that was an incredible book as well. But these are all, these could all be summed up as sort of runners up. What's the big one? What's the number 1 book that really influenced me and the way that I think? Is the number 1 book is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Atlas Shrugged, it was interesting. When I was a kid, I probably was, again, like 13, 14 years old. I think I was 13 years old. And there was a literature seminar that we were having in our school, and Atlas Shrugged was the book. And I don't know why. I was always arguing about, I don't need to read this book. It's stupid. I don't know. It's too long. What am I going to learn from it? And this was a great thing that my mom did. She goes, I'll read it with you. She goes, I'll read Atlas Shrugged with you. In fact, she goes, I'm going to race you. She goes, I think that I can read it faster than you will. And credit to parents that think like my mom does. She knew that at some level I was very competitive, and it got me. She got me, and I read through the first. They say that Atlas Shrugged, you got to get through the first, sort of 100 pages before things really start to pick up. We got through that part, and man, I almost couldn't put it down. It was just absolutely, one of the most powerful books that I'd ever read. Now, I just want you to understand something. I don't 100% agree with everything that Ayn Rand goes over. In fact, some of her thought processes, one of the things that I would tell you that I disagree with is her tendency to make everything very black and white, right? Everything is just to the absolute polar extremes. But she does this for a purpose, which is to, sort of punctuate the entire point of the story. But I got to tell you, from the perspective of a 13-year-old, and then having read it again many times over the years, it is really quite a complete book on commerce, the sort of the downfalls of socialism and communism, sort of positives of capitalism, and really analyzing it and going deep into what can happen to a society, following the heroes, the things that they go through, and then just the entire, concept of just taking the people that quote unquote sort of make the world go round and yanking them out of society. I won't get into any more, spoilers on it because I think it should be read by everybody. I just came out of it going, man, I really want to be one of the people that, helps to move society forward. That was the conclusion that I came to, and so having the adversity, the vision, being able to estimate the forces that will work against you, like the mindset of, people that don't think as big as you, their defense mechanisms. These are all concepts that I got from reading Atlas Shrugged as a 13-year-old, and it's only been reinforced over the years. Now, I will tell you, a unique situation happened to me regarding Atlas Shrugged. Some of the kids that I've run into today that have been reading it, they don't read it from the same perspective that I did. They look at it from, and this is a very, very interesting and telling mark of where we are at in society, that when they read Atlas Shrugged, they were actually more or less conditioned to take the side of what would be considered the bad guys, the characters that are against, Dagny Hank and John Galt, sort of the folks that are more on be considered the far end of the extreme, the socialist, communists. The kids today are taking it from the point of view that they're actually the heroes, that it's actually more of a recipe book for how to, like, what you have to look for and defend against the conservative, more, right-leaning ideologies. What are the things that you have to put in place in order to be able to defend against that? And I'm like, what? That is crazy. I can't imagine reading Atlas Shrugged and coming out on the other side that you're in favor of the enemy of society. And I'm like, what is happening here? That is totally insane. But I think that that's something that we need to, sort of reflect upon is in society. And I think it's something that's, you're seeing sort of the unraveling of the government threads that have been like sort of pervasive through the fabric of society. It's starting to unravel. And I think that you're finding that, people are winding up on one side or the other of, these very, very powerful ideologies. And I think that Ayn Rand, especially in Atlas Shrugged, I think it's an absolute requirement for everybody to read at one point or another. But again, I like the things that I said. I don't 100% agree with all the things that she talks about, but I think that it's 100% worth talking about. And so that's why it's, my number one book that helped me in mindset and thought processes of, of vision, adversity, innovation, general excitement, the possibilities, some of the things. Well, what happens if you give up? Like what would be the ideal civilization? There's so many things about it that just really, really inspired me. Even to this day, I enjoy even just reflecting on it and thinking about it. But that firmly takes the number one spot, for me, is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. So I don't know. In the comments, leave the books. I'm sure that you guys are going to light me up as per usual about my different, thoughts and comments about the different books that I've got in there. But feel free to leave those comments in there. Tell me the books that you love and the things that, influenced you, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, the books that you really think are, important, to the way that you think, and some of the ones that influenced you. Leave them in the comments. I'm excited to be able to read those. Make sure that you, if you like this, make sure that you like it, you subscribe to our channel, and finally, make sure that you turn on the notifications so that when we release new episodes, you're the first ones to know. So thanks again for tuning in to this episode of the Coleman Nation. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.